this is such a time-consuming process. Let's say I want this box to roll and rotate like this. To make that happen, I first need to move the object's origin and place it right on this edge. But look at how many steps Blender makes me go through. Tap into Edit mode. Make sure Edge Select is active. Select the edge, press Shift-S, choose Cursor to select it, tap back into Object mode, right-click, go to Set Origin, and pick Origin to Cursor. Finally, after all that, the origin is moved and I can rotate it properly. And if I want to reset the cursor back to the center, that's 2 more steps. Shift-S again, then choose Cursor toward origin. Seriously? 10 steps? For something so simple? And we use this over and over again in Blender for different reasons. That's a huge time waster. But here's the smarter way. You can do the exact same thing in just 3 clicks. Press D, hold Shift, and click the component, and then right-click to confirm. That's it. Origin moved. Done. And this is exactly why we built the SmartFlow add-on. With it, you can take so many repetitive, boring operations in Blender and make them super fast and easy. Now, the brand new SmartFlow version 1.3.0 is out, and we've added 3 more tools: Smart Origin, Smart Transform, and Universal Manipulator. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all 8 tools included in SmartFlow and show you how they can speed up your workflow like crazy. And if you want to grab it for yourself, check the links in the description. Right now, you can get SmartFlow and all MiM products at 40% off, but only for 1 week using the code down there. Many of our products have just been updated too. Alongside the ZBrush, OBJ, and FBX formats, they now also include Blender-ready versions, so no matter what software you use, you can benefit from them. For example, our best-selling stylized human and animal-based meshes now come prepared for Blender's asset browser. Just drag, drop, and start sculpting instantly. We've also got tons of 3D brush packs, noses, ears, eyes, lips, beards, even full anatomy sets to speed up your character creation. And if you're into sci-fi and hard surface, check out our latest release, the Sci-Fi Modular Industrial Panels and Plates Kit, 35 modular parts, and 15 rebuilt panels designed for maximum flexibility. So don't miss out on this sale, it's only here for 1 week. Alright, let's jump right into SmartFlow from MiM-Repository. Installing SmartFlow is super easy. Just drag and drop the file you downloaded into Blender and click OK when the message pops up. After that, press N, and by going to the SmartFlow tab, you'll see all the tools available inside. Alright, let's start with Smart Origin. This tool is actually inspired from a feature in Maya, a very handy and powerful one. It lets you move your object origin in different ways with just 1 click. It's really simple. First, select the object you want. Then you can either click this button to activate it, or just press D. If you've used Maya before, you'll recognize it. It's the same shortcut there too. And if you press D again or right-click, you can cancel or exit the tool anytime. Once you activate it, the transform orientation automatically switches to local, and you'll see a gizmo appear on your object showing the local axis. Down here in the bottom left corner of the viewport, you'll also see a little tooltip that guides you on how to use the tool. Keep in mind, your object must be selected, otherwise the gizmo won't appear. Also, this tool works only on mesh objects and only in object mode. It doesn't work with other types like curves, bones, and so on. Now, here's the fun part. With just a click on any component, you can move the object origin right to it. When you do that, the local z-axis of your object aligns perfectly with that component's normal direction. If you want to reset the origin back to the object's center, simply press Alt right-click, and boom, the origin goes back to the middle while keeping the same orientation. That's actually super helpful. For example, let's say your object is rotated like this, and you apply all transforms with Ctrl-A, all transforms. As you can see, the object's origin jumps back to the center of the scene, and its orientation gets reset. Now, if you try to move your object in that same direction, for example in this direction, it becomes very hard because when you apply transforms, you lose the local orientation. Normally, you'd have to go through a long process. Tap into Edit mode, switch to the component selection mode you want, let's say Face Select, then select a face, go to the Transform Orientations panel, click the plus icon to create a new orientation based on that face, then go back to Object mode. And the origin is still sitting at the center of the scene. So to fix that, you'd need to right-click, go to Set Origin and choose Origin to Geometry. You can see how long and tedious that process is, just to do something so basic. But with the Smart Origin, you can do all of that in seconds. Press D, click here, then Alt right-click to reset it, and boom, done. And then right-click to exit the tool and move your object freely. Super fast and incredibly easy. And that's not all. You can even move your object's origin based on other objects in the scene. For example, I select this object, press D, and click on the face of this other object. And just like that, the origin moves there. Super simple. Now let's switch to top view. I'll press Alt-D to duplicate this object, and then hit R to rotate it like this. And now with Shift-R, I can repeat that rotation to distribute these cubes evenly around this one in the center. Very cool. If I want, I can select all of them and press Alt right-click to bring the origins of every selected object back to their centers. Pretty cool, right? It's so satisfying to use. But there's more you can do with the Smart Origin. For example, if you hold Shift, you can move the position of the object origin without changing its orientation. If you hold Control, you can change only the orientation based on the component you click, without moving the origin's position. And if you hold Control-Shift, the Z-axis will aim directly toward the component you click on. Amazing! And remember, this is all just one single tool inside SmartFlow. That's one of the new tools added in this update. Alright, let's move on to the next one, Smart Transform. This tool is also super cool and can really speed up your workflow. It's designed for those times when you want to make transformations like moving, rotating, or scaling without changing the object's origin. Let me show you what I mean. Take this door, for example. By the way, this model is from our free course, BlenderTutorial, our beginner-friendly Blender training, where we recreate Andy's room from Toy Story completely from scratch. Modeling, UVs, materials, lighting, and rendering. If you haven't seen that course yet, I highly recommend checking it out. It's 3 seasons, 32 episodes, and over 14 hours of fully free training, with all the practice files included. If you're interested, the link is waiting for you in the description. Alright, let's get back to our example. Let's say I want to open and close this door by rotating it, but right now, the object origin is sitting right in the middle of the door. Normally, that means going through the same long, repetitive process again. First, move the cursor over here, then setting the object origin right on the hinge, and then finally being able to rotate the door properly. But once you start rotating, you'll notice something annoying. Blender doesn't let you use your middle mouse to navigate around the object. You can't orbit around freely, which can be really frustrating in some cases. To orbit, you have to hold Alt middle click. To zoom, you'd need Control Alt middle click, and to pan, it's Shift Alt middle click. Totally different from Blender's default navigation shortcuts. So a simple task like this ends up becoming slow, awkward, and just plain exhausting. And that's exactly where Smart Transform comes in to fix all of that. You can activate or deactivate it with Control D, then just select 2 components. For example, I'll pick this one and this one at the bottom. Now, when I move my mouse, look at this. You can instantly rotate the object around that axis without having to move the origin or the 3D cursor at all. And the best part, you can still navigate smoothly using Blender's default keys. No more getting locked or stuck. Amazing. You can also hold Control to rotate incrementally, or if you want precise control, type in your rotation value using the numpad numbers, not the number row, and then press Enter or click to apply it. That's it. Super simple. Just pick 2 components, and you can move, rotate, or scale instantly. For example, I'll press Control D again to activate the tool, select these 2 components, and now with the scroll wheel, I can easily switch between different transformation modes. You can also see which mode you're in right here in the corner, and if you prefer Blender's default shortcut, G for move, R for rotate, and S for scale, you can use those too. To cancel the operation or exit the tool, just use right-click. And like before, there is a tooltip down here in the corner showing all the key shortcuts to help you out. Up here, you'll also notice the letters V, E, and F. These let you quickly enable or disable component detection for vertices, edges, and faces, so you can choose exactly which ones you want to interact with. That's especially helpful when you're working with dense topology, where selecting components can get tricky. Another feature inside Smart Transform is called distance. For example, let's say I select these two objects, and now you press Ctrl D to activate Smart Transform. To use distance, you need to be in scale mode. So if I press S, I can switch between distance and scale modes. And just like that, you can easily adjust the space between the two objects. Also, keep in mind, Smart Transform detects the selection order too. So if I want to move this object to the left, I can first select this vertex and then this one. And now if I type 1, the object moves exactly 1 unit in that direction. Pretty handy, right? Okay, that wraps up Smart Transform. Now let's move on to the third tool added in this new SmartFlow update, the Universal Manipulator. Yep, if that name sounds familiar, that's because you've probably used Maya before. This tool works very similar to Maya's Universal Manipulator, and actually the idea came from a comment one of you left under a previous video asking if Blender had something like that. Back then, the answer was no. But now, thanks to SmartFlow, it's finally here in Blender. You can activate or deactivate it using the same hotkey as in Maya, Ctrl-T, and it's super easy to use. Just click and drag on these points to scale your object while seeing its dimensions in real time. You can also click and drag on these pink diamonds to rotate the object. Hold Ctrl to rotate incrementally, or Shift to enter precision mode for slower, more accurate transformations. And if you hold Alt while scaling or rotating, it does it relative to the center of the object. Simple, fun, and super practical. Alright, now let's move on to the fourth tool, Base Setter. This one's really straightforward. It basically snaps your objects onto the grid, inspired by a similar feature in Unreal Engine. All these options are about placing objects on the grid, but without changing their object origin. The first option, Place on Grid, simply moves the objects along the Z-axis, so it sits perfectly on top of the grid. If you have multiple objects selected, SmartFlow treats them as a single group, uses the lowest object as the base, and places that one on the grid while moving the rest accordingly, keeping their relative positions intact. And notice even if your objects have parent-child relationships, those stay perfectly safe. Nothing breaks. The next option, Place on Grid and Move to Origin, does the same thing, except it also moves the entire selection to the center of the scene. The next option, Center at Origin Above Grid, treats every object in your selection individually. It moves each one to the center of the scene and places it right on top of the grid. The next one, Place on Grid, works similarly. It also treats each selected object separately, but this time, it keeps their X and Y positions untouched and only move them along the Z-axis so they sit on the grid exactly where they are. Now, the next two options are a little different. They actually pay attention to the collections your objects belong to. So, for example, this object is inside its own collection, as you can see here, and this one is in its own collection too. So we have two separate collections here. Now, if I just select one object from each collection and click Place Collection on Grid, you'll see the SmartFlow treats each collection as if it's one joined object and neatly places them both on the grid. And finally, the last option does the same thing, but also moves them to the center of the scene. I'd actually recommend assigning a shortcut key for the option you use the most. That way you can do it instantly. For example, the End key is a great choice since it's the same one Unreal Engine uses for this exact feature. Now, the next tool is called Smart Copy. You probably already know that if you have two Blender sessions open, you can simply copy objects from one with Ctrl-C and then paste them into the other scene with Ctrl-V, which is super handy. But here's the problem. When you do that, Blender loses all your collections during paste. Everything you organized so carefully just turns into a mess. And that can be really frustrating. And that's exactly what a Smart Copy fixes. Even better, it works across different Blender versions. So you can, for example, copy something from an older version of Blender and paste it straight into a newer one. All you need is to have SmartFlow installed on both versions. And just a quick note, this add-on works with Blender 4.2 and above. Now, instead of pressing Ctrl-C, use Ctrl-Shift-C to copy. And in the other scene, press Ctrl-Shift-V to paste. And just like that, everything, objects, collections, and your whole scene structure transfers perfectly without breaking anything. Smooth, fast, and super satisfying. The next tool is a super useful one, Material Overwrite. As you probably know, this feature is normally available only in the Cycles render engine. If you go to the View Layer Properties, you'll see the Overwrite section down here, where you can simply pick any material in your scene, and when you render, the material gets applied to every object in the scene. But if I switch the render engine to Eevee, you'll notice that this section completely disappears. There's no material overwrite option at all. Well, as always, SmartFlow to the rescue. With a SmartFlow, you can easily pick any material from your scene right here in the list and just click Apply Preview. And that's it. You can now use Cycle's Material Overwrite feature inside Eevee too. If you want to use a UV checker material instead, which can be really helpful for checking texel density, just enable the Use Preset checkbox here, and you'll see a simple UV grid preset available. Click Apply Preview, and boom! The checker texture is applied to all objects in your scene. You can even adjust the texture scale super easily with this slider, and when you're done, just click Reset to bring it back to default. Simple as that. Alright, only 2 tools left. Next up is one that's especially handy for sculptures, Smart Face Sets. As you know, face sets in Blender are basically like polygroups in ZBrush. They let you divide your mesh into separate colored regions, kind of like an advanced masking system that makes it easier to isolate and work on specific parts. You can hover over any face sets and press Shift-H to isolate it. Super handy when working on complex sculpts. But here's the issue. When you're working on symmetrical models, Blender doesn't give you any option to mirror your face sets across the x-axis. Each side gets its own unique set, and doing it manually can take forever. That's exactly what a Smart Face Sets fixes. With just one click, you can instantly mirror all your face sets. All you need to do is switch to Object Mode, click Smart Face Sets, and it'll automatically take you into Sculpt mode. And as you can see, now your object has perfectly mirrored face sets. So now you can isolate any part you want with Shift-H and sculpt freely. Super fast, super clean. Alright, we finally made it to the last tool in SmartFlow, Collection Batcher. This last tool is Collection Batcher, and it's a total lifesaver for anyone who likes to stay organized, especially for people working on large scenes or doing set dressing. For example, on the left side here, you can see my Blender file that contains all these objects, each one neatly placed inside its own collection. Now over here in the main scene, I'll press N to open the sidebar, and under Collection Batcher, you'll see 2 filters, Include and Exclude. Let's say I type Collection in the Exclude field, or any other name you want to filter out. You can even add multiple names by separating them with commas. Okay, if you like, you can also toggle this option to make it case sensitive. Okay, then when I click Add.blend file and select the Blender file I had open on the left, you'll see it instantly lists all the collections inside that file right here. Now, before importing, I can choose exactly which collections I want to bring in. For now, I'll enable all of them. Down here, you have options for cameras, lights, and empties, which let you decide whether or not to import those objects if they exist in the file. Then, under Placement options, we have 3 modes. Original, which imports everything exactly where it was. Above Grid, which keeps the same placement but moves everything just above the grid. And Center above Grid, which moves all the objects to the center of the scene and places them above the grid. Super handy for organizing imported assets. And for example, these assets are now perfectly placed and ready to be added to the asset browser, so you can easily start building your own custom asset library. And here, you can even define how far above the grid they should sit. And here, you can choose whether to import them using Append or Link, whichever fits your workflow best. Alright guys, that's it. I really hope this video helped you and made your workflow smoother. As always, thanks a lot for sticking with me till the end. And hey, if you haven't joined the MIM Discord yet, I'd love to see you there. It's completely free and it's full of awesome people who help each other out with Blender questions, share their work, and just hang out. See you in the next video. Take care and happy blending!